I practically live in either jeans or sweatpants, so our Birch Block Pants pattern is a dream combo of both, but with a quilty twist. This pattern features a side panel that you can create using tiny quilted biddy blocks or patches of squares using your favorite scrap fabrics. It also has an elasticated waistband and pockets for that comfortable everyday look and feel. Now in this episode of the Quilted Runway, I'm really taking the fusion of this pattern to the next level by using a denim-inspired quilting cotton collection and classic jean style top stitching for that denim look. And the result is this amazing pair of quilted jeans with a trendy barrel leg silhouette. So let's dive in and create some quilted jean magic. Here are all the materials. First, you'll need the paper pattern pieces printed and tiled together. Also, the quilt block pattern instructions. I like to print them out too. For the fabric, I'm using a fat quarter bundle from the Maywood Studio Patchwork Blue collection for the blocks and approximately 3 yards of the dark denim fabric from the Shadow Play fabric collection, also from Maywood Studio. But you could also use denim fabric. For the needles, if using a quilting cotton, use a universal or quilting size 90 needle or a size 90 denim needle if using denim. For the thread, I'm using 2 different colors, one to match my fabric and another one that's contrasting for that classic jean top stitching look. If you plan to use your serger to finish the edges, also pick up some serger thread cones. For the waistband, you will need your waist circumference length of 1.5 inch wide elastic. Then lastly, a quilting ruler and rotary cutter for the blocks and cutting out the pattern pieces, as well as all your other sewing essentials like pins and iron, snips, and everything in between. I started with creating all the biddy blocks for my side panels, and I first needed to cut them out. I went block by block and batch cut them. But I'll show you how I cut and assembled my favorite block, the Sawtooth Biddy Star. With the instructions and 2 different fabrics by my side, I started by cutting, and I always like to start with a straight bottom edge. First, I needed 4 rectangles, 2.5 by 1.5 from the background fabric. So I cut a row 2.5 inches wide. Then after squaring the corner, I measured and cut 4 pieces, 1.5 inches wide. I also needed 4 1.5 inch squares, so I cut from the same row in my background fabric. Then from the star fabric, I needed 8 1.5 inch squares and 1 2.5 inch square. For sewing, I started by pairing 4 of my background rectangles with 4 of my star 1.5 inch squares and doing stitch and flip corners. Place the pieces right sides together and stitch from the top left corner to the bottom right corner first. I chain pieced these together. Using scissors, only trim the star fabric to 1/4 inch wide on the right side of the seam and then press the triangle away from the background fabric so the top right corners match. Then repeat the process for the other side on all 4 pieces. With all the units created, I assembled the block, first laying it all out according to the instructions. To sew them together, I first pinned and stitched each row together. I pressed the allowance to the one side, alternating each row so I could nest the seam allowances together and stitch the rows. Then I pressed those allowances open. Sometimes I find a sewing stiletto actually helps me with this step. Look at how cute this block is. Repeat to batch sew all your other blocks for the side panels and pockets. You can sew as many or as little blocks as you like, also including plain 4-inch squares. For both pant side panels, you'll need 22 4-inch square pieces. And for the pockets, you'll need 14 3.5-inch square pieces. Now it's time to arrange all the blocks. Have fun with different orders and placements. I just like to have a solid square at the top and bottom of my panels to reduce bulk for the elasticated waist and hemline. Once I was happy with the panel lineup, I pinned and stitched them all together with 1/4 of an inch seam allowance. Then press all of the seam allowances open. I grabbed my side panel backing piece to quilt them together. If you want, you could also layer batting into the panel. I love this one for all my quilted projects. Match the panels wrong sides together and baste using your preferred method. Since I'm a sewer first, I always like to use pins, but you could use adhesive spray. To quilt together, I'm going to top stitch on either side of each block joining seam. I want my quilting to be in that contrasting thread color, so I changed the thread on my machine and started stitching, pivoting at the corners. Here's one of my finished side panels and it looks so good. I can't wait to stitch it into my jeans. Now, if you're new to quilting or just want to make up a test pair or make it more simple and fast to sew, you could just use the backing pattern as one solid strip of contrasting or similar fabric if you want. You could even add batting and just quilting lines to add some dimension. This pattern is so customizable. So I'm going to stitch this into the side seams of my pants. But before I do that, I need to cut out my pants front and back pattern pieces. And you also need to determine the best size. So I like to use my hip circumference measurement against the size chart to determine the best size to sew. So let's finish up these barrel leg quilted denim jeans. Oh, I'm so excited. Next, I cut out my pant pattern pieces from the main fabric. You'll need 2 fronts, 2 backs, 2 or 4 pocket pieces, depending if you want to piece the outer pocket, as well as 2 backings, which I already cut out during my block making process. I laid my fabric right side out on the fold and placed my first piece on. When cutting out pants, you need to pay extra attention to the grain line. Use your ruler to ensure that the grain line is parallel to the selvage edge of the fabric. I love how my SewTites ruler has magnets, so it doesn't shift while I adjust my paper pattern. The SewTites mat is also magnetic, so I can use these magnet pattern weights to hold the pattern in place while I cut out. Once my pieces were all cut, I marked my darts and pleats. This is my favorite way to do this. Clip into the dart legs. Then, using a pin, place right into the dart tip so it goes through all of the layers. Then I peel the layers open to expose the wrong sides of the fabric, and using a marking tool, I mark where my pin intersects the fabric on both pieces. Before I remove the pattern, I mark the pleats. All I do is just clip into the notches. To finish the dart marking, I use a ruler and chalk to connect those 2 lines from the dart tip to the dart leg notches. Sewing the darts and pleats are also the first step in sewing these pants together, so I pinned both. Starting with the dart, I place the fabric right sides together, matching up the dart leg lines, creating a triangle wedge. For the pleats, I pinch only one of the pleat clippings and fold it to the other and pin. The front leg pleat folds down and the back leg pleat folds up. Working from the dart leg up towards the tip, stitch and taper off with no back stitching. I like to leave a long thread tail and double or even triple knot together. For the pleat inside the seam allowance, I just stitch the fold and remove the pin. Pressing the dart is very important, and I like to actually use a pressing ham. Working from the wrong side, I press the dart intake toward the center of the pattern piece. I also press the pleat, and in preparation for top stitching, I measured and marked 1.5 inches from the edge. Now I'm going to switch back to my contrasting thread and top stitch. Before attaching the side panel, you will need to sew and attach the pocket piece. If you want a pieced pocket like what I made, you will need to cut and prepare 7 3.5 inch squares and arrange them like I did here. For for the other pant leg pocket, it will be the reverse layout. Also have the pocket backing piece ready. I first stitched my pocket block columns together using 1/4 inch seam allowance. Then I pressed my allowances open, and then I stitched my columns together. Now I need to cut out my pocket piece, and this one needs to be cut right side down because the curve needs to face the side seam. Match up the bottom, top, and long side edge and cut. I took my backing piece and placed it right sides together and pinned along the curve, long straight edge and bottom edge, and stitched together using 1/4 inch seam allowance. Clip into the curves and trim across the corner to reduce bulk and flip to the right side through the opening. To make the corner crisp, I like to use a point turner, or you can carefully use the end of your scissors and do a lot of pressing. Switching to my contrasting top stitching thread, I quilted the pocket layers together to replicate my side panel stitching. The pocket is ready to be attached to the pants. I like to have my front pattern piece available to confirm placement along the side seam. I use pins to secure in place around the edges. At the top edge, since this pocket has an integrated belt loop, I pre-pressed down 1/2 inch and placed a pin 2 inches down from the pressed edge to mark a stitching line. Now back to the sewing machine to stitch down in place. I'm sewing about 1/8 inch away from the pocket edges for the top stitching along the side and bottom edges. Lay out the corresponding front, back, and side panel right side up. It should perfectly match up with the top of the waist and the bottom of the hem. Pin the side seams right sides together. I'm actually going to sew these seams using my serger since the seam allowance is 1/4 inch, which is the width of my serging stitch. And it also finishes and sews my seams in one step. After I serged my panels on, I went ahead and serge finished each inseam edge separately. I pressed my panel seam allowances towards my pant pieces and top stitched. This is much easier to do before the inseams are sewn. Now I laid and pinned my inseams right sides together, matching up the edges. The pleat intakes should nest together to reduce bulk since they were sewn opposite ways for the front and the back. Stitch together at 5/8 inch seam allowance. Press the seam allowances open. I like to use a sleeve roll inside the pant leg to make it easier. I switched back to top stitching thread and top stitched on either side of the seam, starting at the crotch point and working down towards the hem. For these pants, I wanted to add as much top stitching as I could onto seams to achieve that classic jeans look. Once you have one pant leg completed, you're going to repeat the entire process to get the other pant leg that is the reverse. And once you have those two complete, it's time to put them together. To sew the pant legs together, have one pant leg right side out and the other one wrong side out, and match up the crotch seams by inserting one pant leg into the other. I always start by pinning the crotch points together and working my way up to the front and back crotch seams to the waist. Stitch together at 5/8 inch seam allowance. I also serge finished my seam allowances together. After a quick press, I top stitched my crotch curve allowance to one side. While I was at the serger, I also serged the waistline. Now let's create the casing. Press the top edge towards the wrong side 3/8 inch. Then press again 1 7/8 inch, which is the elastic width plus 3/8. I like to use a sewing gauge for this step, starting at the back with 2 perpendicular pins to the seam to represent the opening for inserting the elastic. Keep pressing and pinning all around the waist. Starting at the back, stitch the casing down. I like to do the top stitching from the right side. Stitch all the way around the waist, finishing at the back, leaving about a 2-inch opening. With the casing sewn, we can insert the elastic into the back opening. First, cut your elastic to your waist circumference measurement. Then, using a safety pin or a bodkin, start inserting the elastic into the casing. Work the entire way around until the elastic comes out the other side of the opening. Then overlap the elastic ends, making sure it didn't get twisted, and pin. At this point, I also like to even out the elastic gathers. At the sewing machine, I stitched my elastic ends together. I do a box shape with an X in the middle of it to make it nice and secure. Then insert the elastic back into the pants and close the opening with stitches. You will probably need to stretch the elastic as you sew. At the front, fold the top of the pocket down to match the top edge of the pants and stitch. I just love this feature in these pants. If you want to add a little loop at the back too, you can take a 2 by 3.5 inch piece of scrap fabric from your blocks and press in the long edges to the center and top stitch. I placed the loop right at the center back, extending 1/4 inch from the casing seam line and stitching 1/4 inches down to the left of the seam line. Then flip up and top stitch, aligning with the casing. At the top, fold under about 1/2 inch to match with the top of the waist seam and top stitch. I love the finished elasticated waistline with the integrated belt loops as part of that classic jeans look. And now it's time to move on to the last step, which is the hem. There are some options when it comes to the hem, like binding the edge or adding a cuff, but I'm just going to press and top stitch. With the leg hem serged, I'm pressing up 5/8 inch and pinning. In order to top stitch from the right side of the leg hem, I find it easier to flip the entire leg wrong side out. I'm top stitching about 1/2 inch from the fold. After finishing the other hem and a final press, these pants are done. I just finished these Birch Block pants and I am so obsessed. They have the fit and feel of a pair of lounge pants because the elasticated waist, but they have the look of jeans with the contrasting top stitching and the indigo printed quilting cotton from Maywood Studio. Oh, I just love it. We have to talk about this quilted side panel. I'm going to be incorporating these little bitty blocks into other pants patterns that I am making. It's just such a cool way to even like upcycle a pair of pants too. And of course, you can utilize this technique and this pocket on so many other pants patterns as well. But if you want to get this pattern used in the video for free for a limited time, make sure to click the link. And I thank you for watching this episode of the Quilted Runway. If you made a pair of pants, we want to see it. So use the hashtag the Quilted Runway on social, and also make sure to follow us on Instagram at SewDailyMakers and at Quilting Daily for everyday sewing and quilting fun and inspiration. Lastly, don't forget that anywhere can be your quilted runway. Wear your creations to a creative convention, a meetup, or just running errands. You'll be nice and cozy and quilted, and you'll be so proud of what you made. So happy stitching, and we'll see you next time. Bye!